and she can help us get the video uploaded
Okay.
in case anybody is interested in watching the
Yeah, I'll
PBAC.
give her the link
Mm-hmm.
and she can download it, or she can transfer it over to
Okay.
YouTube from.
I'll send you her email address.
Okay, great. What is that, Tinica?
It's my egg.
The timer? No.
That's creepy. It's like a little eye opening. Is that a Dutch gadget?
No, it's not. My daughter gave it to me.
Cool.
Egg concepts. She's a design major.
Ah.
That's why.
Nice, nice.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, David.
Hello.
Oh, it's a nice effect with the reflection on your glasses, Dave.
Oh, well, I might take them off even though you like it, Perry.
Yeah, I guess I should see.
Anybody get to make a snowman today?
Ho, ho, ho.
We have 3 outside, 3 snowmen outside.
There was a lot of snow involved. I was a snowman today.
I was a shoveler, not a builder.
Man, I wish though I had time to try to make an igloo. I mean, this seems like the
This would have been
especially
good
maybe
snow.
tomorrow. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
tomorrow it'll be good for it once it freezes. It just seems like a really fun little challenge to try to make it.
So we're a car-free household right now,
Wow.
and I can report that shuffling your way to the street is much easier.
Shoveling the driveway. Yeah.
Well, we only had to shuffle, like
Right.
shuffle's width worth of lane.
Yep.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. It's just coming off another call. Hey there, Perry.
Hi, Lisa. No, you're right on time.
Let's see. Oh, no. Is that Dan? Yes, Dan's there.
Hello.
Mandy. Let me just chase her, make sure she's on her way.
How do you spell your last name, Tinica?
My last name?
Yeah, is it?
Like Theo, but with an I.
Okay, great. Is anybody else's back kind of sore from shoveling snow?
It was
Heavy
heavy.
snow.
I'll feel it tomorrow, I'm sure.
Oh God, me too.
All about squatting.
Yeah.
Yep, use the legs, not the back and arms, right?
All righty. Can you believe it's December? Oh, there she is.
It's it's almost
Almost the end of the year.
it's
Almost
almost the
2021.
shortest day of the year. We're like 3 days away.
Yep.
Yeah,
a
it's
very
weird.
unexpected year it was.
What'd you say, Jerry?
In a very unexpected year it was.
Oh my.
In many ways.
Oh my God. Yeah, understatement of the year, Jerry.
I remember at New Year's Eve last year, when we were all maskless and socially not distant, socially close, I was telling a friend that I was thinking of the roaring 20s, and this one sure has been a roaring year. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be the start
And
of
it's
the
the
new
20s.
roaring 20s.
All right, shall we get started?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. I wanted to start the meeting by saying thank you to everybody for all of the extra effort that's gone into this year, and that I personally really appreciate everybody's help, and I think our results for, when you put the goals up next to what we've achieved, it shows. And so I think bravo, thank you. Couldn't have done it without all of your efforts. So I just wanted to put that out there.
And I think our bike-friendly community results also show what a good job we've been doing.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that report card.
Yeah.
So shall we follow the agenda and go to the minutes? I just had them up a moment ago. Did everyone have a chance to look at them?
Yeah, they look good, except I had invited Anita to the meeting and my name wasn't listed as being present.
You weren't in the list of attending?
I didn't see it.
Okay,
Sorry, Dan. Sorry.
Okay. You're forgiven.
all righty. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions?
Looks
Or
good to
is there-
me.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Alrighty, motions minutes are passed, minutes are approved. So our big topic is engineering. Deanna, so I'll ask you to, oh, I just realized Adrian's not on here yet. Hold on a second.
Mandy, what's your last name?
Adrian.
Did you see me?
You, yep.
Oh, it's Arshan. Arshan.
Send it to you again.
Got it. Thank you, Mandy.
So I see that that doesn't include the Hamilton Wiggins corridor study, but so Deanna, I would assume that would be the bulk of your engineering report.
That's what I was hoping. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, Adrian just joined.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen. Let me find it. I have a million things open on my screen. Just a second. Let me get to the right thing.
While you're doing that, I do just want to thank you because I was really pleased how you got them to respond to basically all of our comments from last meeting. I mean, not in every case exactly the response we would have liked, but thank you for following up on all of that.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciated the feedback. I helped them incorporate some of it. So I'm glad that that's worked out. Okay, so now I think I'm ready to share my screen. Okay, all right. So I'm just going to cut to the recommendations piece because it is a fairly long document with a lot of information on it. So starting on page 67, WSP has provided a summary of the various recommendations, and there's a lot of good information in here about the individual intersections and
Philip, did you have a question? No. Okay.
No.
Okay. And in some cases, there are options that are provided rather than just one solution, or they're pieces of solutions. And let me know how much detail you want me to go into. I don't know if everybody has reviewed these.
I think it's
Yeah.
probably it's probably helpful to go over it, just given that not everybody is going to be comfortable with all of the engineering terminology.
Okay, that sounds good. So I do want to just let you know that when council looks at this on Monday night, the recommendation is that they are going to accept the document. It does not mean that they are necessarily adopting or approving each individual recommendation. So you will see that there will not be a resolution that is in the council agenda for this. They will just accept the report by motion. So I just want to let you know that piece of it. So starting at the west end at 206 and Paul Robeson, the report indicates the recommendation to be that we realign, rework the intersection, and specifically related to the channelized right turn from Bayard to Paul Robeson, but also looking at just the general alignment from Paul Robeson over to Hodge Road. So that would be a project in the future that will be coordinated with DOT because that is a state highway at that location.
Can I ask
mo-
a question?
Yep.
Has anybody brought up the possibility of taking down that tree in that intersection, which seems to me would open up a whole bunch of possibilities?
We can take a look at it. Yep, we can look at it. Again, it's a state highway, so
The lining up of the lanes between Hodge and Paul Robeson, for instance.
mhm.
That
Wait, where? I don't understand why it's a state highway. I mean, is
206.
Bayard a state
Sure.
highway?
206?
Yeah, Bayard's a state highway, 206.
Oh, got it. Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
So moving on from there at Paul Robeson and Chambers, the idea is to put further investigation into constructing a roundabout to replace the signalized intersection. And in doing that, we would also look at extending the sidewalk on the west side of Chambers all the way to the intersection at Paul Robeson, and putting in crosswalks on all four legs, tightening turning radii, and then looking at if any additional, they do have an item on here for position pedestrian push buttons next to the sidewalk. So that would be if we kept a traffic signal. Right now, the traffic signals are not ADA compliant based on the positioning of the pedestrian buttons. So if it were to stay as a signalized intersection, improvements need to be made, excuse me, for both the push buttons themselves as well as the right turn radii. Then moving on to Paul. Yep.
When you say it's not compliant with ADA, you mean because someone in a wheelchair can't reach the button from their seat?
There are distance requirements for how far away, or actually there are maximum distances for the placement of the pedestrian button relative to where the ramp is at. And
Oh,
and where we have our signal poles are, they exceed that maximum distance.
I see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially the one in the, that little island, if you're coming from Chambers northbound to Paul Robeson,
Yeah.
that little island by the right turn. They've kind of tucked the signal pole in among some landscaping quite a ways back from the ramp. So all of those would need to be updated if the signal were to remain. Then moving on to
Can
Paul
I ask you a
Robeson.
quick question?
Yep.
Any concerns about the roundabout? Is there enough space or?
We'd have to look at it further.
Yeah.
I think in general, it appears from their concept to work.
Because the traffic traffic pattern seems to work, right? You get
Mhm.
kind of balanced inflows each way. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. And then, I mean, the one sticking point is just the way the southwest corner of Chambers and Paul Robeson is with,
The property there.
yeah, that property, the garage,
okay.
the way the
Yeah.
driveway fits in there. And
Yeah.
so that's really what we would need to focus on.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. And this is part of why we're just accepting the report and not the individual recommendations, because there are additional determinations that need to be made once we get into a design phase.
Dan, I saw that they had a recommendation to do a pilot for that intersection for the roundabout. Is that something that could actually be done without having to do anything infrastructure wise with that island or anything?
I think I have to double check. I think it was more for the turning radii rather than the roundabout, but I'd have to take a look at it again.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was tightening up the corner radii.
Okay.
I think because that right turn channelization creates a challenge for us in trying to do a pilot of a roundabout.
Yeah, I would think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think the roundabout would be great as kind of signaling that it's a slower road. You know, somebody coming from that end of town toward the other end, traveling toward Harrison, they would kind of see that, you know, it's a calm,
Mhm.
you know, it kind of sets it up as you go down the street that it's
Sets the tone.
yeah.
Right.
So,
Right. It's almost like an extension of Hodge Road with the various traffic calming that they've put in place on that
Yeah.
stretch of road. And then moving on to Paul Robeson Witherspoon. This is mainly just more pedestrian improvements of looking at either the lead pedestrian interval or the exclusive pedestrian phase at the intersection. This is an interesting concept with the recommendation of an electronic no right turn on red sign. So this I found very interesting, because if somebody has not activated the pedestrian button, then people would have the ability to turn. But if somebody has activated the button, then the sign would light up, indicating that vehicles cannot turn.
Do we have
I
that
think
anywhere else in
that's a
town?
great idea.
I don't know that we have it anywhere else in town.
I don't think so.
So it's an interesting concept in that it does help with traffic, but it maybe is too lenient for vehicles in a way. So that needs a little more consideration, and like you all have raised, we don't have this anywhere else. So in
Yeah, I
terms of
think,
consistency, we may not want to introduce something unique like that.
But you know, I think a do not turn on red light would be a little more effective than just a do not turn on red sign.
Right.
You know, I think that could really do something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Because I
Perry,
don't know, I'm from California and like there's no do not turn on red signs in California at all. You can turn on red wherever you want. It's just weird being in New Jersey and seeing all those do not turn
There
on
is
red
one on
signs.
like Quaker Bridge. Sorry, I don't know the road. The road where Costco is. I feel like it's in West Windsor, and I know there's one where there is a do not turn on red. On right,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, we have just regular static do not turn on red signs, but nothing that's activated.
Yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
seen
and
that.
that's where I've seen it being activated. I
Okay.
can get the crossing and I can just reference it.
So that's
Yeah.
at Clark's, at Quaker Bridge in Clarksville, you think? Is that
I
where
think-
Costco?
Yeah, it's like past Costco. You know, there's it's
Oh,
almost you go
past
over the
Costco.
hump. Yeah, there's a
Mhm.
hump, and then you make a left. So if you come out of that road and then kind of turn back right to Costco, that's where that is.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
There's, if you're going southbound on 206 in Montgomery at where 601 connects in at Trent Road, there is a no right turn signal on the signal head. But
Yeah.
nothing, yeah.
I have a question about this intersection also,
Mhm.
because I'm seeing that they're recommending, like in the Witherspoon study, left turn lane from Witherspoon onto Robeson.
Yes.
And as you know, the bane of my existence is the left turn lane on Wiggins. And I'm wondering if anybody has looked at the effects of removing that if Witherspoon Street is going to be mostly northbound.
Yes, so that did come up at the council meeting. Council meeting? Yes, when we
Yeah.
were talking about the ordinance introduction. And I think what our traffic engineer said is that the addition or deletion of a northbound left turn lane is not really necessary in terms of traffic movement. It's more to help with the geometric alignment of the roadway.
That's for the additional one on Witherspoon Street.
Correct.
I get it.
Right.
Because there's a left turn lane going southbound
Mhm.
to turn on to Wiggins. And they
Right.
like the idea of making that symmetrical and having a left turn northbound turning onto
Yeah.
Robeson.
Right.
I'm just fixated on the ones on Wiggins because the removal of that one would allow the bike lanes to go all the way to the intersection.
Right. Rather than sharing the space at the intersection.
Which is where, I mean, a lot of the feedback from the beta bike lane is like people go, why did it stop? It's so scary, you know. Especially parents with children were very concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we talked about that, but right, with the
we did a little
the
bit.
left turn lane on turning left from
Wiggins and Paul Robeson. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can see how that's nice for getting traffic flow if when Witherspoon Street was two-way.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we're talking about making it one way this way, maybe the need for it will just not be there as much anymore.
Yeah, let me talk to our traffic engineer because I do remember actually in this study, I know she has different paragraphs about where the greatest right and left turns in the corridor occur.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have to double check how Witherspoon fared. I think a lot of more lefts occurred at Chambers than Witherspoon, but there was still quite a few at Witherspoon. So I'll check in on that and see what I can hear back on that. All right, so just back to that Tunica, we're still working out whether or not we would want to add that northbound left turn from Witherspoon to Paul Robeson, because it does affect opportunities for green infrastructure and curb bump outs that we might be able to do. So we haven't completely accepted that recommendation yet. We're working through the details.
Thank you.
Yep.
Deanna, can I also just check, right now, the consideration is that Witherspoon is northbound from Nassau to Spring.
Mm-hmm.
But do you envisage that it will continue to be northbound only from Spring to Wiggins, Robeson?
No, it'll be two-way.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so then Wiggins at Van Devender, looking at raised crosswalk or intersection, as well as potentially some on-road pedestrian crossing signage. And going back to the Witherspoon traffic study that McMahon did for that project, there's an expectation that we will have more traffic at this intersection of Wiggins and Van Devender, and they are recommending possibly an overhead blinking light at this intersection in addition to these improvements. So that's actually covered by two studies.
And can I ask also about that crosswalk that is by the library and Tulane? Did they address anything in their recommendations on that? Because I seem to think that it's kind of a lost it's a lost crosswalk. It's a mid-block sort of crosswalk, and drivers are not necessarily aware.
So it already has the in-road pedestrian signage. We had discussed, I think, in one of the previous versions of removing that crosswalk, but there was a concern that there are quite a few people that do use it. And so the desire was not to remove it completely. And I think we can look at it in terms of when we're doing a road project to see if it's also a candidate for a raised crossing.
Okay. Thank you.
Hamilton at Moore, this intersection would be a candidate for the rectangular rapid flashing beacon, as well as looking at the raised crosswalk and intersection, as well as the in-road signage. And if and when something occurs at Westminster, the idea would be to work with them to relocate their entrance away from the intersection. And we would also look at tightening the corners if possible in that area. Let's see, Walnut, Chestnut, Hamilton. This is actually a signal that could be a candidate for an intersection that could be a candidate for a traffic signal. And again, this one would have the tightening of the curbs, particularly on the north side. And then next is the Hamilton-Linden intersection, again, looking to put in a raised crosswalk or raised intersection at that location. So that handles the intersections. There is, in terms of the corridor itself, recommendations if parking were to remain in the corridor and we found a different way to accommodate bike facilities, shifting parking to the westbound side would provide more on-street parking. So it's in there, but we also recognize that with the bike facility recommendations, that's a moot point. Looking at the crash reports, it didn't look like there was a prevalence of issues with the lighting, but we would still look to do a street lighting study in the corridor to make sure that we have the proper illumination and placement of illumination at crosswalks. And this also will be touched upon when the planning department and planning board conduct a master plan lighting, it's not survey, but review for the municipality. The other corridor improvement is a recommendation about looking at the zoning ordinance related to driveways and the ability for property owners to install T-shaped driveways to allow for turnarounds and maneuvering on private property so that cars are not backing into the roadway. This has been, I think, a contentious issue in the past with the borough. So it's placed there, and we'll see how that moves through the process. So finally, on to bike recommendations. We are looking at the bike lanes for further review, as well as the shared use side path. And then also traffic calming through the corridor, because we need to, in order to consistently keep the volumes and speeds down, you need to have regular placement of traffic calming, and the distance between our intersections is greater than you would like to see for traffic calming. So we would need interim measures between each intersection so that drivers maintain a regular speed throughout. So that covers all of the recommendations. I don't know, any other questions, anything else I can fill in on this?
No, I think the one thing that we wanted to explore a little bit with you is the question of the lane widths and, fitting the bike lanes mostly into the existing cartway.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa and Jerry and I were talking about it this afternoon, and there seems to be a lot of not only standards that allow for 10-foot lanes, but also studies that indicate that it doesn't, result in increased crashes. It's actually a traffic calming measure in itself.
Mm-hmm.
If we're looking for more traffic calming in the corridor, it seems like something to consider. And, the other thing that we were talking about is with the 5-foot bike lanes, there's a little bit of wiggle room there. It's like it's better than if you have parked cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
10-foot lanes where, a truck doesn't have any room for error, or a bus. And so we just wanted to get your sense a little bit more about, while it's not in the study, whether there's some openness to looking at that further as we further investigate that option too.
Yeah, I think we can definitely look at that further. I was thinking about it. I think we did use 10-foot lanes on Cherry Valley Road.
Wow.
And that's where we have the bike lanes, but it also has a 4-ton weight limit. And that was one of the criteria that we used in establishing 10-foot lanes on that roadway. But we can definitely look into different design guides and research it further. We do have, I think, NACDO and even the DOT roadway design manual has language about the 10-foot lanes. And so we can, you know, when we get to that point, we can definitely look at it further.
Okay, great.
Do you,
I'd say Cary Valley is a higher speed roadway than
Correct.
Hampton Wiggins. So if it's okay to do 10-foot there, I can't really see that it would be, why it would be different on a
Mhm.
slower
In
speed limit
town.
road.
Right. Right.
So I don't know if you've seen the email that I sent very shortly before this meeting, but it contains data that says that 10 feet is actually optimal for if you are interested in minimizing crashes.
I saw it came in. I didn't look at it in detail. So yeah, we can definitely look into that as well.
So this is data from Toronto, where the data stops at 10 feet, because but then there's also data from Tokyo, which does have roads with smaller lane widths. And there it's kind of clear that the optimal width is 10 feet. It's interesting.
Definitely.
do you
Yeah.
have
So
Go ahead, Dan.
do you have a alternative in mind for the entrance exit at Westminster Choir College?
nope, not at all. I think part of it will be dependent upon who the developer is and what's proposed at that site.
I have an alternative, Dan. Just get rid of
Yes.
the damn thing. There's no reason to have a driveway there at all.
Yeah.
I don't think you reconfigure it. You just get rid of it and get onto the site from Walnut.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
But then where will the policeman park when he's doing school crossing guard
when
duty?
when he's having donuts. I don't know.
Some
Over at
on-street
Lori's
parking on the side street.
So I know this is not necessarily part of the dialogue for Monday night, but the intersection at that point at Hamilton and Chestnut Walnut. At one point, there was also a consideration for, I believe, for a roundabout.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
We looked at it for kind of a mini circle, a mini roundabout, and just the orientation of the lanes made it very challenging. The legs of the intersection made it very challenging. It was almost more like a kidney shape. And again, we'd have to look at what the cross volumes are again, but that could definitely be looked at. I think the signal gives pedestrians, you know, at least an opportunity to completely stop all traffic rather than just have it slow as it goes through the intersection.
Yeah.
And are you thinking of it as a full-on traffic signal, or would it be pedestrian activated?
No, it would be a full traffic signal. The rectangular rapid flashing beacon would be at, I think I said Moore Street.
Could I ask, how do you imagine this whole report to be received and moved forward?
Well, part of it may be David's answer. I think it will be incumbent upon me to start adding it into capital improvement programs and working with the governing body on what our priorities are.
Is there a timeline for Hamilton for like the paving projects part of it?
Not right now. It's going to need it, but it's not on my list in the next couple of years.
I think if we do something soon with this study, it will be out of sequence with when it would ordinarily come up. But I think that's okay as a, you know, just like, well, I don't know, maybe Witherspoon was already due for a redo, but yeah, I think, you know, the critical path item is going to be getting the permit parking task force to find the alternate locations for the parking spots along Hamilton and Wiggins, and work with, the people who use those parking spaces right now to get buy-in. So I think that needs to happen in order to get the solution that we would like to see on the corridor. So, I would like to say that'll happen within 9 months or so. Right now, we're rolling out a pilot that's just for the tree streets and for Bank Street and for Witherspoon Jackson. The permit parking task force is doing that first. And then hopefully if that goes well and there's good feedback and some buzz, we'll expand it into the high school parking zone, possibly into the western section as solutions for employee parking for the central business district. Both of those areas, the high school zone and the western section, are anticipated to, they have a lot of on-street parking that's very lightly used currently. So I think we'll take that up next after the pilot.
So this is in pilot stage now.
The permit parking, we expect to be, we have to find out from the lawyers whether we need an ordinance or a resolution, because the changes will be ostensibly temporary for the permit parking. If it were permanent right off the bat, it would need to be an ordinance. But I think we may be able to do it as a resolution, and it will be in January. And then it will take about 8 to 10 weeks to get the technology in place, because technology is a big part of the permit parking. We're talking about license plate recognition, technology for enforcement. We're talking about e-permitting, where people can, much like, just go to a website and order a permit for yourself, and also e-ticketing, which is already done for the parking meters, the parking enforcement officers, but the police don't have e-ticketing yet. They still write tickets by hand. So overnight parking, that's enforced. So we're trying to roll all three technologies out at the same time, and that will take about 8 to 10 weeks. And then I would expect the actual program to start, the pilot program to start maybe around April 1st. So.
Great. Okay.
So we look at how the parking rolls out in the tree streets, let's say, and then what do you imagine might be the next iteration of this? Could it, say, be July 1st or?
You mean for the parking, or you mean for this corridor, the next steps in the corridor implementation?
Thinking in terms of the corridor, that the tree streets don't necessarily touch upon the parking that would be given up in order to create the potential for bike lanes.
Right.
So I'm trying to back into the
yes, my hope would be July 1st, that we would start the process of trying to work through the next parking zones, being the western section and the high school area. And, give us 3 months or so to try to get some buy-in.
But would that mean like maybe by next spring, we could look at doing, I don't mean this coming spring, I mean 2022, putting in like trying a pilot for the bike lanes? Would that be a possibility at that point then?
So, yeah, this was a sort of a follow-up question for Deanna. If there is, with further research, some interest in seeing how 10-foot travel lanes would work, that would seem to me to be one great rationale for doing a pilot, is to test out the 10-foot travel lanes,
Mhm.
more than just a couple of weeks, the way we did with the beta bike lane.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so,
Definitely. I think we'd want to roll it out for probably like 4, 5, 6 months and really get a good sense of how comfortable people feel using it, that, that level of stress.
Mhm.
And that can also help us determine whether 10 foot's enough or if we do need a little bit wider lane.
right.
Hmm.
So that would be spring of 22.
Again, I don't know, if we get agreement on relocating those parking spaces, could happen before then, but we might want to wait until spring when the bicycle traffic increases again to do the pilot. I would hate to do a 6-month pilot from, 1st to March 1st. If that's 6 months.
It's close.
March 31st. So, so we might want to push the pilot off a little bit to
Mhm.
get it more of a full roadway use picture.
Right. Like a March to September would be optimal, I think, or April to October.
Yeah. And what other steps would you see going forward? I mean, would you be trying to identify grant funding for some of these improvements and stuff like that? Is
Yes.
the next step for, yeah.
And I think, there is the potential that we can try some of the other pilot work with tightening the corners of the intersections as well.
Mhm.
There's nothing holding us back to do that in spring, summer, fall, and see how that works out.
Of
Does
21.
tightening corners mean making it like a 90-degree turn, a hard turn, instead of a soft rounding curve like?
Well, yeah, it's a tighter corner. It doesn't come to a point, Dan, but yes, from what I understand, you're just saying that it would be a tighter turn, not a fast turn. And that's what we would try to do. Yep.
Might be a 10-foot radius instead of a 20-foot radius.
Correct. Yeah.
A little bit like
That's
what you
done
did
to-
on Walnut at Franklin.
Yep. That's
Right.
exactly it.
Is that done to lower speed?
Yep. Lower speed and just make it safer so that if there is a pedestrian that happens to be at the intersection that's not seen, the vehicle's at least going slower as they approach the turn. Yep. Okay.
So what would you need from us in this regard? Do we create some kind of statement? We just make a comment in the public, in the period when it's introduced, or the motion, I guess it is.
Again, I'm going to jump in, because I think what the committee does, this committee is advisory to council. You're not advisory to engineering. So I think that what I would really like to see the group do is come with a statement that's generally supportive of this corridor study and express a preference for option 2 for the bike lanes over the shared use path. And maybe include something about wanting to investigate the narrower travel lanes as part of the further investigation for option 2. I think that would be my ideal to bring to my colleagues on council. Short, sweet, to the point, and hitting on the things that are really important to this group. If there are things that I'm missing, absolutely bring them up. But those are the things I'd like to see this group weigh in on.
Yep. And then maybe to add in about testing out the different things that are recommended in the report as well.
Mhm.
Demonstrations, both
Mhm.
for the intersections as well as for the bike lane.
Yep.
Okay, does anyone have any more questions on this?
No.
All right. Thank you.
Is there anything
Ew.
else on engineering that we should be hearing from you, Deanna? What aren't you doing?
I know, I'm still in the mad dash to the end of the year. I did put in for 2021 priorities. At the end of the year, we have to prepare a memo to the administrator about our accomplishments for the year, but then also goals and priorities for next year. And I have added in the bike boulevard markings in that priority list, and I will be updating my budget request to include that as well. A little behind on that piece of it. We're also working with Justin and Michael in the planning department on wayfinding, and that wayfinding program, while it's really directed at downtown, at least to some respect, the idea is that whatever we create can be expanded throughout the municipality. For example, wayfinding to trails and parks and other facilities in town, and also trying to incorporate bike and walk time within that wayfinding system. So that's an exciting thing, and that's another priority for next year as well. The university's in the process of updating their program, so we're hoping to kind of jump in on their coattails. And they've spent all the money with all of these grand professionals out of England. And so hopefully we can just pay a few extra dollars and have a really nice program that expands into the municipality. So that's something else we're working on. Trying to think what else. I think that's it that I can remember right now.
The question about the pathways, is there, I guess since the pathways that you have originally planned to do, is that from a former budget? Is there room to have like a phase 2 of additional paths that were on our priority list for
Yes.
this year?
Yep.
Are you looking at specific ones?
No, so right now I have Johnson Trolley, Mountain Avenue, and we've got
Kelly
up in,
Gardens, I think.
well, we've got, Community Park North, we have some work, but also up in Campbell Woods on, is it Macomb Road? We're doing work. But if there are other locations that you think are high priorities, let me know. And
Are you saying a path on Macomb Road?
well, and it's an asphalt sidewalk on Macomb.
Yeah.
And it's in pretty bad shape, and we will be resurfacing that, replacing that.
Oh.
But yeah, please let me know if there's additional locations. We do have in the 2021 design pipeline to redesign Mount Lucas from Stewart Road East up to Princeton Avenue in Montgomery. So we will be designing a replacement to the sidewalk and asphalt pathway that's there, striving to get 10 feet, a 10-foot wide path. We have 8 foot now from Ewing to Stewart Road East. So pushing to get 8 feet, I'm sorry, 10 feet from that point north.
Yeah, there's additional, well, we had done that spreadsheet,
Mhm.
with all the priorities and conditions. I don't think there's really any changes from that. So there's a few number one priorities that haven't made it to your list
Okay.
yet. But there are some like 206 and Lover's Lane
Mhm.
and possibly the path that connects to Edgerstone. Looking at, specifically at the other pieces of the bike boulevard network
Okay.
that are pathways that could stand to be improved.
Okay.
But there's others that are important too on that spreadsheet. So
Okay. I'll pull it up and take a look at it.
The pathway that goes through the DNR Greenway section right there before you get to Rosedale, is that DNR Greenway's responsibility or is that the town?
The one that connects over to the parking lot or to Rosedale Road itself, I think that's all the towns.
Okay.
We'll take a look at it.
That's that little 10-yard strip that's not paved to Edgarstone.
No, it's the, it goes along the Stony Brook.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yep, that's municipal. We'll take a look at that.
I know that it upsets Sergeant Murray, but there's a curb cut at the end of that on Rosedale because the DNR Greenway, or I guess it's Friends of Princeton Open Space, had established the trail that walks along the Stony Brook, and then you have to cross Rosedale. And there's the curb cut invites people to think, oh, I can cross here. And I don't know what to do about that because it's sort of at the bottom of the hill. And as a, it's part of the trail, but it's not exactly visible for drivers, but
We'll take a look at it.
thank you. Is there anything new on the Safe Routes to School Rosedale?
No, they, unfortunately, our designer moved. And so we sent our contract to their old address. And so we've just been finalizing the contract with them and should be getting into the bulk of the work in January, February.
So I think the next thing we had on our agenda was to talk about the Bike Friendly Community Award, which was, I was shocked because I know we've been working hard, but I didn't realize that we'd be that well recognized. So again, I want to say thank you to everybody and all of the work that went towards getting us to that level. We are now one of 101 locations in the United States that are ranked silver. And there are only 6 communities in New Jersey that have any bike-friendly community recognition, and we're the only silver.
I was surprised that Montclair wasn't on that list.
Well, when you look at I'll let Lori talk about this because she was really the driving force on this. But when you look at that application, it's a bear. It's not something you want to take on easily. And then once you're in it, you got to keep going.
Uh-huh.
Over to you, Lori.
Not sure what you wanted me to talk about with it, but I know, I think it's great. We're silver. I think it had a lot to do with that there's a lot of collaboration going on in the past few years since we first applied and got the bronze in 2013. We've, Sustainable Princeton has been very active. We now have the Climate Action Plan, which was adopted by council, and the Bicycle Advisory Committee is mentioned in that, and the Bicycle Master Plan, it's part of their recommendations is to implement that plan. And I think it had a lot to do, there were a lot of questions. They changed the application this year in part because of COVID, and they added a lot of questions about COVID and, if you had changed anything. And we did have all of those meetings in the summer, and we got the Bike Boulevard Network going partially, during that time and as part of those meetings. And the quiet streets, which of course didn't happen, but we did a lot of work on that, and all of the public meetings and notifications. And I think that was recognized, even though the state, ultimately prevented us from doing it. But I think, they did recognize all the efforts that we did make.
I was going to say, I had somebody from the League of American Bicyclists reach out to me. And David, were you able to connect with him? Oh, you're muted.
I regret to say that I haven't managed to wedge it into my schedule yet.
Oh no, it's too bad. Anyways, the feedback, he was one of the reviewers of our application, and he said that the bike boulevards really were a key component of the application and what helped push us into silver. They were really, really impressed by the ability for all of us to work together to get that in place. And, I highlighted, like you said, Lori, that we had Sustainable Princeton involved. But ultimately it really goes back to this group. The Bike Advisory Committee was key on pushing ahead for the bike boulevards. So you guys you deserve all the kudos on this the silver level.
We're also in the 3rd edition of the bike map, so I think that also might be a little impressive to them too. A lot of other communities do a bike map, but then I'll be traveling somewhere and I'll see that, oh, they have a bike map, but it's never been republished, and it's they have nothing. They have no actual copies to give out, but we've managed to keep ours going.
Yeah, the one other thing they changed in the application this time, didn't they remove like the enforcement piece?
A lot of the enforcement, yes, but there were still a lot of policing questions, and we had really good answers for those. So, we look like a very inclusive community, and that we're not targeting any particular neighborhoods or people who ride at night or anything like that. So I think we look good for that. And we've also increased the education a lot since we first started with this application process. And, with Lisa and Mandy and Greater Mercer TMA, it's just really gone from like education in one school to all of them, and all of the events that you do in the schools, I'm sure they're looking at that too. So I think, basically in every category, we've come further. Even the events are more collaborative with the Historical Society, and having the event valet parking bike racks now, and all of that makes a difference.
Well, thank you for all your work on it, Lori. I know it's an enormous undertaking, and you do the lion's share. So Really,
It was good I didn't have a job this summer, so
Yeah.
furlough came in handy.
There's always a silver lining, right?
Gave me something to do too, so it was.
Oh, that
it
was a
good that way
pun.
also.
Oh my God. Oh,
Thank you.
Lisa.
Oh, sorry, Dan. So with that, all of having said that and what we've been doing, we should be looking at what are our goals for next year in 2 weeks' time. We have stated in our minutes, more implementation of the bike mobility plan. We have bike boulevards with the pavement markings, wayfinding, and increasing awareness. We have increasing bike parking, both short and long term, or covered, I guess would be another way of saying it. We have adult education, because we feel like we've pretty much got the school aged families and children and families well covered now. Improve outreach to residents. Events hopefully will return, and maybe one of those would be a cyclovia in town. The Harrison Street corridor study. Terhune is also under study, but as I understand from before, maybe Deanna, you said that that was something you were already undertaking it in engineering.
Yep, that's going to be moved up to a design project next year.
Okay. There are a few other items. There was a traffic signal policy with items like a lead pedestrian interval or an all pedestrian phase, a street lighting plan, which we've heard about from Justin, and then another suggestion was the safe passing law, to support that as it goes through the New Jersey legislature. Tanika had mentioned something towards the end of the afternoon that I did not include in these minutes, which was snow plowing of multi-use paths.
All sidewalks.
And sidewalks, okay.
They do that on the Bun Drive side path.
Is
Yep.
that a municipal or is that a corporate
I believe it.
function that's doing it?
I think that's a
Municipal,
municipal, yeah.
Yeah.
It's-
I think it's the recreation department that does all of the side paths. So that'd be like Great Road, the Mount Lucas one, Bun Drive, all of those get cleared by, I think it's recreation, not public works, but either by it's, those generally do get taken care of.
And Mountain Ave and Stockton Street?
I don't know
I'm
about
not sure.
Stockton. Yeah, I know there used to be a list around, and we actually need to unearth it because we still need to. One of the things that I'm working on with our attorney is to update our code for bicycling. And this might be something that you can assist us with next year is we're trying to harmonize the borough and township code sections on bicycling. And there have been so many changes in state law and so many advances in micro mobility.
Right.
You've got the electric bikes and you've got electric scooters. And so to try to figure out what our regulations should be, We started it in the fall and just decided that it really needed a lot more time and consideration. And so maybe that's something you could add to your goal list to assist us with that.
You know, I would like to encourage the group to focus on things where, you know, there really is research that needs to be done. You know, I think that while it's tempting to look at yourselves, at ourselves as an advocacy group, and, you know, sort of choosing something like a safe passing law that's going to happen at the state level. I mean, it would be a great thing to have, but what this committee can contribute to getting that to happen is, I'm not sure, a whole lot. I mean, you could make a recommendation to council that they pass a resolution supporting it, but it's not going to be a big, you know, it's not going to be a big effort for the committee or make a big difference at the state level. So, whereas I can see things like what Deanna was just mentioning and helping to update the bicycling rules in ordinance harmonization between the borough and the township and new regulations. I think that a lot of the things on your list, Lisa, probably there could be research done. I mean, we did talk about the street light, you know, sort of studying street lighting and coming up with a recommendation for where it should be and what the foot candle levels should be. That's a research project. I can't remember off the top of my head a bunch of the other ones, but I think even for ones where it's not immediately obvious, if it's something that's a big goal, let's think about what the committee can do to move the goal forward.
So traffic signal policy was another one.
Uh-huh.
I have one to add on, and I've brought it up in the past at these meetings, but the brush pickup and leaf pickup. Often, you know, piles are left out for much longer than they should be. And it seems like particularly the landscapers aren't paying attention to the schedule for pickup.
Right.
And there's often stuff in the bike lanes, you know, the bike lane on Mount Lucas, but also, you know, in general, when all this debris is in the roads for extended periods of time, it makes it more difficult for bicycles to get through. So I don't know if there's something that we can do or recommend to council.
Yeah. So,
Jerry would know about that because West Windsor passed an ordinance for no brush in the bike lanes.
we have one too. Doesn't mean people don't put
we
it.
do?
Yes, we do.
But it's not enforced well enough.
Right. So I'm going to be going back on Public Works this year. I was off for a year so that other people who wanted to be on could be on. But several of these things, like clearing the snow on the sidewalks or leaf and brush, which is part of a larger waste management overhaul that Public Works has been wanting to do for a couple of years, I think are both, you know, great things to be supporting. I mean, one of the questions, I don't know the answer to this question, but, you know, for things that other departments are already looking at doing, like Terhune Road, you know, bike paths on Terhune, is it bad for us to have that as a goal, or is it good to double up so that council is hearing from like 3 or 4 different directions that this is a priority? It's more likely to get onto council's priority list if it's coming from several locations. So
That sounds good.
yeah, I think for the snow clearing on the sidewalks, that is something probably where there could be some research done and sort of say, you know, here are other communities that do it. It added, you know, 3% to their public works budget. You know, find out that here's the best equipment to use. that kind of research could be really helpful. So I know the more work you do, the fewer ones the fewer priorities you can really take on realistically, because if it's a lot of work, you can't, people have only so much time. But I think
but
we should go through the list and think of it in that way.
I think now that we are also the pedestrian advisory committee, it behooves us to look at things like, crossing signals at intersections, and certainly sidewalks is an obvious, I mean, I just keep thinking that there must be a section of residents that are basically shut in until the snow melts away.
Yeah.
Because the sidewalks don't have a consistent path for them to get from A to B.
I personally think that's a great goal. I'd love to have that be one of the committee's goals, is to try and support that.
Okay.
And by the way, another thing, we do have a sidewalk plan that was done, I think, by the Complete Streets Committee a couple of years ago with Sam Bunting's help. But that probably needs to be updated in light of all the new development that's coming along. I don't know exactly where there are, new developments that wouldn't automatically have sidewalks to go with them. But I think it makes sense to look at things like the Harrington site, 900 Harrington Road. There's a big affordable housing project there. How does that tie into, into the sidewalk plan? Make sure that people who live there can get on foot to all the places that they're going to want to go down in that neighborhood. And by the way, we did a rezoning of that S2 zone that's along 206 down there, where the tire store is and the lighting store. And we're trying to encourage mixed use development there along 206 with residential above commercial. So that area, even though there's not specific projects that are already slated, except for the Harrington one, it would make sense to look at that neighborhood in light of the new zoning and sort of say, do we want, and also with the, well, I guess this would be part of the Harrison corridor study, but we don't have sidewalks on both sides of Harrison right now, which is crazy. So just looking at some of those.
That's what I was going to mention on the sidewalk plan. It would be good to really look at each roadway where we have existing sidewalk, because we don't, like David said, necessarily have it on both sides of the road. And so it would be great to just take another look at that and see if we've missed indicating on the plan where additional sidewalks are needed. Because I think it has come up in the past couple of years when we've looked at the plan that, the idea is, oh, well, we think it should be on the other side of the road, but it's not shown on the sidewalk master plan. So, and that's housed as part, it's an attachment to the circulation element in the community master plan.
So Jill was very kind and printed that off for me. And I actually have 5 copies of that sidewalk master plan map that for whomever would like to participate in that audit, if you will. Thank you. I have that, plus I got 5 copies as well of the traffic calming map that was part of the study that was done about a little more than a year ago by Jenny Krumiller and Sergeant Murray, and I'm
I think
sure
Sam was on that committee too.
And Sam. So we've got, I guess, at least 6 items here. I don't know what the the state of play is as far as goal setting with the new mayor, but what would you recommend, David?
Well, we're planning a council retreat in January, actually planning 2 so that we don't have to be 6 hours in a Zoom meeting. But one of them is for goal setting and one of them is for sort of legal training, which we need to, especially with new members, make sure everybody's up to speed on what the legal considerations are. Anyway, yeah, so I think maybe January 12th is the one that's goal setting. I'd have to look at my calendar to be sure. Somewhere around then. So we need, I think we need the goals before the next meeting of this committee.
Right.
But I think, we've got a pretty good start. I mean, do you want to go through just one more time, Lisa, if you say at least 6, I think I heard 12. So I don't know if you say 6 if you boiled some down or you threw some out already, or, but can we come up with 6 that?
Yes, Deanna.
Can I add a project? I don't think it needs to be a goal or priority. But on Witherspoon Street, we are hoping to incorporate covered bike parking. And I can provide you with the research that we've done so far, and it would be helpful for us if we have, diehard bicyclists take a look at that to make sure that it meets your needs. It's a project. I don't think it fits in your 2021 priorities, but if somebody would help us, that would be great.
Sure, one of them.
Thanks.
I'm sure we're happy to put in our thoughts, our observations, and we don't need to make it a goal. Just let us know. But it does sound like the code unification sounds like a goal that we should be looking at. Just as an aside, I heard from one of the recent council meetings that the university is expecting something of the order of 3,400 students to come in to town as of February 1st, and they will be phased in over time from the middle of January. And frankly, in terms of transportation, I can't see a lot of them necessarily opting for Tiger Transit. And a lot of them, before this all came down with the pandemic, were using scooters. So I'm expecting to see a lot more scooter activity around town starting in February. And e-bikes. So I had the code unification between the borough and the township plus micromobility. I had a street lighting policy. I have a traffic signal policy. I have a public works, I don't know what you would call it. Public works policy with brush and snow removal, maybe snow, brush, leaves. I have a sidewalk plan, connectivity, and lest we forget, we have a Vision Zero task force to form as a result of the meeting 10 days ago.
I do think that that's going to be formed. I mean, we'll want delegates from this committee, but it won't be created by this committee.
No.
It's going to have members from a bunch of different stakeholder groups.
But didn't necessarily mean to put it as a goal, but that it would be an ongoing project.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think it could be a goal. in
yeah,
the
all right.
Like I was saying before, it's going to take work from members of this committee. And if goals are coming from several different directions, that's good. So,
Okay.
Do the improvements to the bike boulevards and the side paths need to be on that, or is that something that doesn't actually need to be on the goals? Something that engineering is just taking on?
I don't know.
I think, in the spirit of, I don't think there's a lot of work for this committee to do. Maybe we have two columns and we have one that is goals that are projects for the committee. And then there are goals that are things that we'd like to see happen in town, but that don't involve a lot of effort for the committee. Does that make sense to have those two different categories?
I like that.
Mhm.
And the goals are the ones that we share with council for their goal setting.
I would share all of them with
Everything.
council, but I would share them in these two different columns just so they can understand, these are things we want you to adopt as your goals. Because in a way, that's what we're sort of saying is things we're going to work on, and then there are things we want you to make somebody else work on.
All right. We had some other items like education, outreach, events.
There was some discussion at some point about wayfinding. Is there work for
Yes.
us to do with wayfinding, like identifying where we need the signs and?
I don't know, that might be another project where if the university is already engaged with the wayfinding consultant, that we could put in our input to any of those work sessions. I don't know. Or
Yeah, like if-
Deanna, are you going to be part of that?
Well, I'm hoping it'll be Justin more so than me. And so, yeah, I think you could just work directly with Justin on that process.
For sure, Justin is going to, if we're going to have travel times, he's going to want us to give him the travel time by bicycle. For, for all the various destinations, right? And probably for walking too, because we are the pedestrian and bike
As
advisory.
well, yep.
So yeah, if that's going on for this year, we should, allocate time or resources or a commitment to support that.
Yeah.
We're moving now, definitely.
Yeah.
I have a question related to the maps. Is there a map of right of way, pieces of municipal right of way that looks like they're going through somebody's yard, but it's actually municipal right of way? I'm thinking of that bit on Mount Laurel Road. At the end there, it's a dead end to cars, but there's a path that pedestrians and bike riders can use that connects to whatever it is on the other side.
Yeah, it's
One
Heron,
Laurel Road and one
Herontown.
Laurel Circle.
Well, no, it's Mount Lucas Road. It's Herontown Road, and it goes over and connects to, I guess that's Bun Drive, Herontown Road.
Yeah,
I think is where you're talking about, kind of by the old save site.
right.
Yep.
And I mean, there's several like that in town.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if there's a map of those.
We don't, we have tax maps that are on the municipal website. I don't know that we necessarily distinguish in there where they're improved versus not improved.
Aha.
But you could take a look at the tax maps and that would show you what the public rights of way are.
Ah, okay.
And also from the New Jersey DEP, there's the, what do they call that? GeoWeb map. That might help you. It's an online GIS map that could potentially show you what's public right of way and what's private.
Oh, okay.
There's also something called NJ Map, the number 2, NJ Map 2. And in there, there's a, it's done by Rowan University, but they have a parcel explorer among their many maps. And you can get a lot of good information from that.
Thank you.
And maybe next year we'll have our own GIS online as well, but another goal for the engineering department.
I'm asking because for the wayfinding projects, sometimes, you know, for pedestrian, you can cut right through and be there in 2 minutes, where if you're in a car, you'd have to go around.
So bear with me, I'm just typing up these goals that we've been talking about, so I can share it as a document. Alrighty. This is what I had gotten to so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Can everyone see it?
Yeah.
Was the sidewalk one also like a sidewalk master plan? Was it connectivity
Yes,
master
mhm.
plan?
Does anyone know what's going on with adult education, the Princeton adult education that was happening at the high school? Is it online now, or?
I don't know.
I can find out right away. My neighbor is on their board or something.
Okay.
Oh, why are you asking?
I was just thinking that maybe we can offer a course. There's also League of American Bicyclists has their own series of courses. I know it was several years ago that several members did one of the classes, including Lori. I wasn't able to be there that weekend. Can you talk about it, Lori?
I think Deanna did it also. It was yeah, it was done by 2 members of the League of American Cyclists, and they did. It was a 2-day thing that we did. It was like 2 sessions, and one was a classroom session going over all the rules of the road and kind of strategies for safety, you know, for keeping yourself safe riding. And then we did, the second one was on road and in the parking lot and practicing some different maneuvers with the bicycle to, you know, avoid collisions and things like that. So, I mean, it was a very useful course. I think, you know, even those of us who have done a lot of on-road riding before that point, it did get some some good information out of that, some good techniques.
Yeah, I hadn't done on-road riding much, and I found it very useful, and gave me a level of comfort riding on the roadways, because I mean, we even went on to Nassau Street as part of the course, so it was great opportunity. Think, what was it, like 65 a person at the time?
Yeah, it was somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the Princeton Adult School is open. Winter and spring 2021 catalogs should arrive in our mailboxes the first week of January.
Okay.
It's
The
too
other thing,
late
there's
to-
also those safe cycling videos that the league put out
Yes.
that are available online, and I think we could make those a little bit more, like have a link to them on the website, and just make sure that they're kind of known about, because there's good information in those.
So
I'm not sure if they have them in different languages or not, but some of their written materials are in Spanish as well.
also, I was talking to my husband a little bit about bike stuff, and he suggested something kind of interesting. I don't know how you feel about this, but he suggested that we somehow beg, borrow, or negotiate a corner in the town topics. And it would be like an ad-sized corner where every week we could highlight like a thing, say road safety, or what's happening on Witherspoon Street, or, and that could be part of the adult education, where it comes to people rather than people having to seek out, say, the Princeton Adult School.
That sounds good. I remember when Woodwinds used to publish a bit of information every issue.
About tree care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, because we're not a commercial entity, are we expected to pay for that?
I don't know how that's gonna go, but one could imagine like negotiating something with the town topics, and that be one of the, I mean, they already do a lot for the town, but if you frame it as their contribution to the town, maybe, I don't know.
So I'd be willing to look into that, I mean, as a public service announcement,
Yes.
it might be the sort of thing that they would be willing to do. And I guess we might need to share it with other, groups, other committees or whatever, who would want to have access to that messaging opportunity.
That would be even better in a way.
I think it would, because it would be hard for us to make sure that we were really providing quality content every week. So just spread it around I'll reach out to, I'll talk to, I'm not on the communication committee of the council communication committee. I'll talk to the folks who are and see if there's any interest in doing something like that. And it could be not free, but a reduced cost. But if it's for all of the committees to use, it might be something that the municipality would be willing to fund. That's
great. Thank you.
Okay, should I be adding a bike boulevard goal in here?
I think promotion.
Yeah.
We sort of got a little bit of a start on that, but I think there's a lot more that can be done especially as they improve and we get the pavement markings and stuff like that. We really want to explain to people what they're about and where they are, what they're good for.
And last year, in fact, bringing up the bike boulevards, we had stated a goal of installing 3 or 4. And of course, we hit the grand slam. So we've got an awful lot already. Do we want to look at any other connectivity of the bike master plan and identify a segment that has not yet been installed?
I think Lori and Deanna were talking about that early on, is we do have a spreadsheet of priority.
That was pathway improvements, not necessarily like
Creating
segments of the
new,
bike boulevards.
sorry?
It was the well, we were discussing the side path improvements, like the list that we had made of side paths that needed repair, and whether like another a few of them could be identified as the next ones to get fixed,
Right.
but not necessarily as bike boulevards, but
Well, and I
yeah.
think Lisa was asking more broadly about anything that's in the bike mobility plan.
Okay.
Just weighing in on what the committee's sort of prioritizing things. The problem with doing it for road, with bike facilities that are associated with road improvement projects is those are on a schedule. And, we could say, this one's a big priority for us, but if the road's not slated to be done.
Well,
what? Go ahead, Lori.
I was gonna say, you're talking about Harrison Street though, and I think that would be definitely something we want to be involved in the conversation for that.
Yep.
Especially for the section that could qualify for road diet and also needs the sidewalks completed on the other side.
Yep.
Yeah, it would be interesting if you looked at the bike mobility plan. I think I brought up in the past about Terhune, where it has bike lanes for a portion of Terhune, and then it switches over to a bike lane in one direction and a side use path in the other direction. So just looking at specific corridors and even if there's anywhere that those enhanced sharrows were recommended, review that recommendation to see if there is a better facility type that could be recommended at this point.
That would be an interesting project.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so somebody want to help guide me through which are goals and which are projects? Which we want to state as goals and which are projects?
One is a project. Two is a project. 3 is a project. I'm going to say that 4 is a goal, although this, like I was saying, I think that there's a lot of interest and motivation to take on the leaves and brush for a whole host of reasons, not just for bicycling safety. The snow might be more of a project, because I think we might really be able to contribute to moving that forward. The snow removal on the sidewalks is all about pedestrians and bicyclists. I don't think there's going to be a push for that coming from other quarters, like, you know, like there is for the leaf and brush.
Right.
By the way, the leaf and brush, you know, if we handle it right, it could actually save money.
Mm.
Snow removal, not so much.
Yeah. Vision Zero.
I would put that as a goal.
Yep.
It will involve individuals on the committee doing more work, but I think next one is a project. Next one is a goal. Next one's a goal. Sounded like this was a project, right? Yeah, that's a project. Feel free to disagree with me, anybody, if I'm getting something wrong.
No, you're doing fine.
Okay. The bike and pedestrian safety education is a project. So I did want to make a comment about this, increasing the bike parking. You know, we did pass the new bike parking ordinance this year, which is great.
Thank you, David, for all your work on that.
Yes, thank you.
Well, it
Thank
really
you.
helped. I had good support from this committee from a couple of years ago when we put together the recommendations. But so we should clarify that this is about finding opportunities for more bike parking in the public realm. Because I think that we've already, you know, the bike parking ordinance will accomplish this goal on private properties.
So therefore, if it's public realm, it's not covered, or we can still seek it covered as well?
Sure.
Okay.
You know, I think, for instance, we have a lot of residents in the central business district and upstairs apartments
Right.
who are clearly abusing short-term parking by parking their bikes, you know, for weeks on end. And if we could figure out a way for them to have covered parking, they'll be happier and we'll be happier.
Right. So is this a
And
goal?
I know this isn't really a council or engineering thing, but the bike corrals, I know the signs were put up on them recently that with the date that the corrals would be removed and to move your bicycle. But I only saw the signs in English. So I think the signs, like for future, like those signs should also be in Spanish. Because a lot of those users, a lot of the people who are using the corrals are definitely residents in that area.
Yep.
Because it was the same bikes that were there all the time, so.
We'll let Public Works know that
Yeah.
one. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any need for asking Liliana's help on translating, or you've got that?
We've got that in our office. Claudia in our office
Oh, yes.
translates.
Okay.
Yep.
It's like one sentence. I don't think it's be that hard to get it.
So in a way, I think the next two do go together. The increased public bike parking and the Witherspoon Street covered bike parking locations is just a subset of that. I'm not sure. I guess this is a project.
Project, I think.
Do we need to seek funding for this in the budget?
Let's find spaces first, because I think it's going to be hard in some cases to find good locations where we need bike parking. I mean, easy to find places where we maybe need more bike parking than we currently have, but what do you think, Deanna? I mean, certainly in the center of town, it's tough to find places that are not going to cause problems with historic preservation and
So is this something we look at, like the covered space that's in the municipal Spring Street garage, or?
that's a good one. I mean, definitely a good one. But
Would Hullfish, the Palmer Square management be open to it, do you think? Because they've got all sorts of residents now. I don't know if they've got covered parking for their bikes.
I don't know. Be
I
good.
don't know.
Good to approach them, see if that's something they'd be willing to do.
Is bike share another something that could be on the radar for next year? Or is it still premature?
I'd love to see micro mobility, not just bike share.
Yep.
And maybe that's another research project that could be done.
Yeah, the thing is, I know the university's really interested in this. I think they're actually working. I mean, Kim Jackson talks about it as though they're actively pursuing this. And I think that this is one of those coattail situations. I mean, I'm not sure we're going to do any better researching options than they are. They're probably going to have a lot more luck than we are. And then we'll just, whatever they find, we'll be able to use it.
So is this then a project for someone to connect with the transportation department at the university?
Check in regularly is what I would say.
I would think just make sure they're clear that the town is interested in having something that spans beyond the university into the town, maybe even a little bit more than it did with Zagster. Since we had been talking about expanding it before they disappeared.
Yeah, prior to COVID, we'd been meeting quarterly with the university, various departments like the facilities and transportation groups. And with COVID, obviously, those meetings haven't been occurring. But I can make an outreach to the university, to Kristen, to restart those, and I can include the micromobility bike share as one of the components for discussion.
If I remember correctly, from their bike master plan, they're interested in bike share, but not anything electric, be it bikes or scooters. So I'm just putting that out there.
Okay.
I know this summer they were talking about at one point whether they would try to run their own bike share, and then another idea was they were just going to buy a bunch of bikes and sort of like be a bike library where the students would check them out, and then they would, I guess, beef up the psych lab so that the psych lab was available to help with the maintenance of those bikes. I have no idea. Since September, I have not heard anything about it because, of course, there have been only 300 students on campus total. So, but that's about to change.
Let's at least check in with them and see where their thinking is currently. And, if they think we can be helpful, we can add it as another task. But I'm disinclined to add it as a task.
Okay. So Bike Boulevard promotion is a project. I would
Project.
imagine. Is there
And-
anything else anyone, and
Yeah.
then the,
Those last two I would leave as sort of things to keep track of, but not put on the list for council.
As far as the bike boulevards too, I believe we'll have, Adrian will have his presentation ready in January to give to this, to present to this meeting.
Great.
So for the improvements that, we're looking at that, we'd like to see done.
Mhm.
well, mindful of the fact that it's almost 9 o'clock. I wanted to bring one other idea up that was given to me by Liliana, and I don't know where to go with this. It would be kind of a mutual goal of our committee and perhaps with the merchants. What she was recommending was a system where people could be encouraged to come into town by bike to do their shopping or to go to McCaffrey's or the shopping center. But at the point when you end up with 3 or 4 bags of items that you've purchased, that there'd be some sort of delivery point or delivery service from either the merchants or another kind of concierge group that would collect whatever your items were that you purchased so that you can ride home and not be laid down by all of your goodies, your cans of this or bags of that. So I thought it was an interesting connection to our merchant community, because I know that that's something that would really help in buying local and uniting local and showing that those who walk and bike are as much a part of their customer base as those who drive.
Sounds awesome.
So I know it's kind of a very, loose idea. And it's maybe just an item to follow. I can tell you one other item that she mentioned to me that is really part of something that Jerry and I are doing with GMTMA is the routes to school. She said that she gets more and more people asking her, so what's the safest way for me to get to school from my house? Or, and it raised an idea in my head of when I had a vacation in Quebec a few years back, I noticed a lot of signs along the way that indicated certain roadways were, as they called them, school corridors. So these were a way of pointing out to drivers that they should expect to see more kids moving through this area on their way to and from school. And that also tended to funnel kids into an area that would be safer rather than getting them on streets that were not as child friendly. I don't know how you
Should
feel
we
about.
designate our bike boulevards, bike and ped boulevards?
Yeah,
I mean, that almost sounds like a starting point for that. Because most of them Not all of them have sidewalks, I don't think, but most of them are good corridors to get to the schools.
Yep. Yeah, I think Riverside and Littlebrook are missing quite a bit of sidewalk, but that feeds into one of our other plans. So, I mean,
Yep.
projects and goals.
Yeah.
So, are we good with this then?
I'm satisfied.
I think we've got it covered. I mean, we've got, let's see, 4 specific goals. Wait, and I guess this was considered a project. The bike parking.
Yep.
Is one of the goals supporting the Wiggins Hamilton
Ah,
work?
yeah.
Should be.
It could be, yes. So let's see.
Is there any possibility of a pilot project that we could do, that we could make a goal for this year? Or is it? Like piloting bike lanes on, say, Terhune or the road diet on Harrison or anything like that?
I think Deanna was saying that Terhune, they're going to be actually engineering this year. So
Okay.
Design phase,
That's-
yeah.
yeah, that's not needing a pilot.
Okay.
We talked about, I mean, the fact that Hamilton Wiggins could be ready in the fall, but we might want to wait until 2022.
Right.
We could look at some of just the corner radii pilots on the
Mhm.
Hamilton Wiggins corridor.
Right.
Okay.
And Lisa, move the X by traffic signal policy over to projects. Thank God. I think that's good.
Okay.
Do we think that there's going to be any events this year?
I'd like to think so.
Optimism.
I think we can do, at least a cyclovia on Quaker Road, if nothing else. That could be, I think that could be safe enough, but
Right.
spring or
Right.
summer, late spring or summer.
I'm just
Maybe
not,
by fall, the mayor's ride will be okay to do.
yeah. I'm not sure it needs to go on this list.
Yeah, I don't,
It's sort of an internal thing for the committee to make happen.
mhm.
All right. So do I need to flesh this out a little more, do you think, David? Or is
I
it
don't think so.
clear enough the way it is?
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's see. We are at 9:02. So let me just stop sharing. Very quickly, where is my agenda? There. No, not that one. Just make sure I didn't forget anything. So,
I have it up. Do you want me to share it or?
sure. Thank you. So the Witherspoon Street ordinance, there's been a few of us that have talked about whether or not there needs to be any comment from us as a pedestrian and bicycle advisory committee. I mean, we can certainly make a general statement of support. I don't know whether we need to make anything official like a resolution.
I'm going to leave that one up to Deanna. I mean, my feeling is it's going to get, the ordinance merely authorizes doing it one way, flowing northbound. It doesn't have any other components of what the design will be. That's all essentially to still TBD.
Mhm.
So it's going to pass unanimously. It's not, I don't think it's important for the committee to take action on it. You know,
Okay.
if you wanted to, you know, a lot of people show up and speak at council meetings who don't need to.
And take the temperature of the room.
Right.
I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, Lisa, if you're willing to attend the council meeting on the 21st, and if it looks like things are unbalanced and there are too many comments against it, I would say definitely, you know, if the committee will authorize her to speak on their behalf, supporting it, I think that would be great. But beyond that, I don't see a need.
we are, as I hope it's clear, we really were trying to balance the space between pedestrians and motor vehicles.
Mhm.
And that's where making the road one way allows us to reduce the space that's dedicated to motor vehicles.
I have to tell you, I really like the fact that the restaurant space and the eating space is going to be closer to those operations, to those companies, because having to cross through the pedestrian area and then up and down the curb was just, I just, ugh. Because I worked as a wait person a long time ago, and I just thought about, oh, all of those trays and all of those glasses and all of those dishes, and yeah, and then of course kitchen grease, and never mind. Safe routes to school. I'm trying to hurry this up. It has been a bit of a drought. The schools, as I mentioned, are beginning to look for ways to get outside. Of course, this isn't exactly the easiest bicycling weather for a lot of younger children, but there is a lot of walking. So we've been sending out some activity flyers to the elementary schools. We've been asked by a resident in the Riverside neighborhood to insist that the Riverside School and the crossing guard are more aware of safe routes to school, because this resident had, and some of her neighbors had noticed that there was a lot more how do I put it? Teenagers riding bikes 3 abreast that scared some of the older residents. So just reinforcing what the rules of the road are and making sure that everybody shares the road together. Having said that, I think with the vaccine around the corner, people are starting to think that there's hope that they can resume some kind of safe routes to school activity by the springtime. So for instance, we've been asked to speak at the middle school PTO, again with requests for how to get to and from school safely because they have so many new families that have arrived in Princeton over the summer or at least since March that are not familiar enough with the network of quiet streets. And as we said before, Adrian's compiling this spreadsheet. He's been working with Lori going out and doing the audits. And I guess that's it. Does anyone else have anything they want to bring up, or are we ready to adjourn? Hello?
I'll move to adjourn.
A second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great holiday period, what's left of it or whatever. And thank you again for everybody's help.
You are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for a productive year of bicycling.
Yes. Thanks,
Mm.
Diana.
Thanks to all.
Oh, thanks to you guys.
Yep.
I'm
All right.
only as good as all of you behind me. Happy holidays.
Yes, you
So
too,
long.
Deanna.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays,
Holiday.
Dan. Thank you, Jerry.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.